say, kind of just as a general rule, when we get to maybe a 2-hour mark in our meeting, I know historically, we always had to change the tapes, and, 5-10 minutes, instead of, I go in maybe 1 or 2 council member meetings where people had to get up and excuse themselves, and anyway, maybe just as a general rule, when we see that 2-hour mark, we can kind of do that. All right, so, Councilwoman Brandana, I believe you have.
Mr. Chairman, I have another proposed amendment. This was one that I brought forward that I made today. I think that in light of, I would like some more transparency in things, and I looked through the budget as presented to me, and there's a lot of vacancies. So I would rather, as a council person, instead of just funding the vacancies, I would rather, we come here twice a month, I would rather see when the vacancies are filled to bring a budget amendment. So we get transaction reports, transaction detail, so when new employees are hired. So I would ask that if there's a vacancy, there's money in the budget, in the departments, whatever department you're putting them in. Excuse me. There's money in there for a whole year. So if you bring someone in, you could pay them until you got to the next meeting, and then it would come before council as a budget amendment for a new hire, and we can see how much they're being paid, what union they're going in, all those kinds of things, instead of having all the vacancies. I went back, I saved a lot of my past paperwork, and I went through boxes and boxes, and I could not find any documents with vacancies on them from the years that I was here or before. So I went through the budget, and here's the wages and benefit page that I pass out to everyone. And so I went through each department and looked at that, and there are, I didn't include any temporary or seasonal employment, because that'll run into for the clerk's elections and for the golf courses and the TSX, because they have to hire people seasonally, so that would be a big endeavor for sure. So I just included all the departments that had vacancies, and I added them all up. So I would like to make a motion to remove the vacancies from the budget, not saying that I don't want to hire the people, I just want to know, I would like a budget member to come forward to tell me when they're filled, instead of just putting money into each department without having a person attached to it. So I went through the departments and I added them up, minus those that were seasonal and things like that. And the total of the vacancies is $2,543,973.44. And I have the sheet here with all the departments on it, and I wrote how many vacancies there were for each. So I wondered what the chair would like me to do, read the departments or just attach the paper? Or...
Let me first ask a question, clarifying question to the teacher in terms of if you remove these vacancies, where in the line item would they be placed out within the budget?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I want to put back where they originally came from.
I know, but for the time being, right, if
I don't want a holding area for them, no.
Well, I guess that's the question within the budget, right? Because expenditures, equals revenue. Placing them into some sort of bucket that cannot be, I understand what you're saying, but it needs to be placed out somewhere. It's not that they can be filled, from what I understand your motion. But if we took out $2 million, where do you put that $2 million within the budget?
Wherever it came from. Whatever money you were using to fund those vacancies, I would like the money put back into those funds. whether it's from water and sewer, wherever. I've never seen vacancies since I've been here in any of the budgets, and I brought them with me. So, I don't think that we need to have $2,500,000 sitting there with no name attached to it. I would rather have it come before council after someone's been hired, so I can see what it is. I want to see it.
Mr. Couture, in terms of how to do that, and again, it was a clarifying question, Councilwoman.
Yes, through the chair, Councilwoman Brandon and I did have a discussion about this today. She gave me a call, and she did note something about current or prior years not having vacancies. I don't recall a budget year where we didn't have vacancies, but I just think the documents that were being reviewed just didn't have the correct information on them from those budget years. That being said, the topic about vacant positions, correct? Those are positions that are kind of currently in the budget that are vacant because they're not filled, either through retirement, turnover, things like that. The question of excluding them from the budget, there's a few comments and questions, or a few comments I have about it, because I absolutely disagree with it from a budgeting point of view. And after our discussion on the phone, I kind of reviewed a couple of documents as well too. The Uniform Budget and Accounting Act, State of Michigan. One of the sections talk about what should be included in the budget. One section says an estimate of the expenditure amounts required to conduct in the ensuing fiscal year the government of the local unit, including its budgetary expenditures. So if I, to the councilman's point and to the chairman's point, if we take out the $2.5 million in expenses, that is not a fair representation of the expenditures of the department. If the idea is to put that back in, that would, in my opinion, I think that would be in violation of this item, but not just my opinion. That also being said, a couple other comments as well too is the budget is a very powerful document, as you all are aware. You know, there's other factors to consider too if we're just going to take out something and put it back in later. Is, you know, bond rating agencies look at documents. You know, how they give us our ratings for our bonds, our credit ratings, is if they see a document that shows an original budget of a surplus of $2.5 million, and then an amended budget of, you know, 70,000 or whatever it comes to, they're going to ask why. And I have to answer why too when we do our audit. As part of the audit, I have to give an explanation between original budget and final budget and why there was changes. That's all part of the audit that I have to present to. So I would recommend doing on that basis. And then lastly, and maybe the more important one is grants. There is grants out there. Part of the ARPA grant has it, and then also like fire grants, COPS grants is retention. And what they do is they say, yes, okay, we can give you some grant money, but what you got to tell us is what was your original budgeted FTE for police? You know, and then they say, okay, if our original FTE was 60 and we only have 50 active, then we can say, hey, we need some grant money to try to get those 10 extra people. But if we don't have that in the original budget, it's hard to present for a grant application. So just a few items, because we're on the phone and just trying to scramble and think of things, but those are some items that I want to say, because it's very important to think about that kind of stuff when we're talking about is, I understand transparency, and everybody knows me, I'm a huge fan of transparency, and there's ways to be more transparent without affecting, you know, the total budget like this, to take it out and put it back in. And that's, again, my opinion from the finance side. Like I said, we had a great discussion, and those are my comments, and I'll be happy to discuss any more questions.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on comments directly.
Okay, Councilman Brandon, and Councilman.
No, I don't. Okay, so one of the things that we're talking about up here is that we might not disagree, we disagree maybe with some of the things that people feel is needed or necessary in a department. I mean, we made some changes today because we disagreed on those. So if you're saying that you need to add in vacancies because you feel you need it, or the administration I just don't think, I would rather see it come before council. I brought the sheets with me showing that there was no vacancies before, and I've asked other council people that were here before, and the vacancies were not there. So I understand you're doing it now, and that maybe helps you to get grants for the fire department or the police department. That certainly can be looked at, but just to put money in these departments to be spent on anything, I would say then that they should be restricted. They should be restricted to only be spent on employees and not anything else, or something like that. I just don't agree that you should put $2.5 million in the budget when it's not allocated to anything.